I think it's taking the generative AI and ChatGPT to really put it front and center. And what it's meant is, a lot of businesses now realise we need to make use of it, and especially they want to get a business advantage from AI. So, is anyone here wondering what Europe and EU and so forth is doing around AI? Is this what brought you into the talk, or are you in here and you thought it was a different talk altogether? I get a feeling in this audience, I'm going to have to get you standing up or something like that to get the interview flowing. You're going to have to help me out here, folks, okay? Because otherwise I feel like I'm going to get no feedback, like I just can't keep going. You know?
Okay, stand up for 1 second.
Stand up a second, okay.
1 second. Yes,
Yeah.
I think everyone needs a bit of sugar, okay? So
Alright, hands up who knows about EU. We've picked it up. Hands up who gives any care about the EU. And I'm looking at an Irish man down there, you want to put your hand up, okay? So what I want to do over the next probably 20 minutes or 25 minutes that's left, I want to start talking about what are the EU doing in relation to AI, but also using open source. So if this is of interest to you, please say, if not, there's cookies on the Okay, I'll sit down, come on, let's get going. A little bit about myself. So I work over at IBM. And about 10 years ago, after 20 years in enterprise software, I got involved in open source. About over 10 years ago now. And one of my key roles has been making contributions and providing leadership in open source communities that are important to our company. And why are they important? And you've probably seen this team throughout today is, if our products are going to build on top of open source stacks, and if your company is building software, you're building on some open source, you sure as hell want to be out there to help that community and drive the community forward. Hands up here, anyone that has heard of the Log4j issue. Got it. A common wind around at the time of Log4j, people that know understood that it was one poor guy trying to maintain a project that was used in pretty much everything. Phones, fridges, you name it, that it's software. It was not that person's fault. What fault it was all the companies that didn't contribute into it and help that person maintain the project. And that's why what I do, getting out there and helping projects by contributing, essentially. Now, I'm Dublin gang, so you're going to have to think of Donald, because Donald is really the brains behind this. So Donald's the project lead for the Cogniment Consortium, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So that's the use case I'm going to look at. So, bear with me, I'm not going to have the same knowledge of suave or sophistication of Donald, but I'll try my best. Because you know, dogs do it better, I've been told. Cork people laugh at that as well. Now we're getting a bit of life into this audience. Obviously someone has been drinking too much sparkling water during the break. Okay. Hands up who's heard of Horizon Europe. We've an educated group here. I'm going to be in trouble here now because I'm going to be spoofing. So I'm going to look at Horizon Europe. I'm just going to do a little intro around Horizon Europe because that's part of the Cogniment Consortium. And I'm going to look at it from 3 areas. How it shapes a better future for Europe. Disseminating and exploiting information, or providing information across and making it more available. That word with the D is very, very strong, too many syllables. And finally, open source adoption, which is very close to my heart. So, Open Horizon, or Horizon Europe, is EU's flagship program, funded program for innovation and research in Europe, if you've heard of it. So it's quite an important aspect of Europe looking towards the technology. So why is it so important to to EU? Well, it's around 3 topics I'm going to talk about in relation to research and innovation. First of all, boosting EU's competitiveness, strengthening global impact of EU industries, and unlocking technology and knowledge and technology. So when we look at about boosting EU competitiveness, what we mean here is fostering economic growth and creating high quality jobs. So look into the future. And then promoting industrial competitiveness through cutting edge technologies. So the key here is that a lot of technologies in Europe are competing with low cost economies. And it's through technologies we're going to keep our industries ahead of the curve and keep them driving forward. The second aspect is around And the second aspect is around strengthening the impact of industries. So collaborating between researchers and innovators and policymakers, facilitating that, and then supporting practical developments that feed into the industries. And the last one is around technology and knowledge. And the key aspect of this really is investing in technology, investing in research, and especially it's now going to be around AI, with open source, and then using that knowledge and technology. How does it drive in and feed back into the industries afterwards? Because there's one thing I say always about research and researchers is they do great slides and they do great white papers, but it's not just the publishing of the papers, it's where does it go from there. There's been loads of stuff that has been researched and has never gone anywhere. Let's get it out there. Let's see what's the next thing that's going to help us. Because when we work in technology, the most important thing is how is it going to help us as a people go forward. And that's feeding into this part. Taking on research and making an impact. So Horizon Europe wants the output to be tangible and concrete. And it wants it to make an impact on society and industry. All the great technology inventions are the ones that help us in our lives. Hands up here who was an air fryer. We only got one lately. I'm not sure why we're behind the curve. But what an invention. And everyone's going, yeah, but it's just a small oven. Yeah, but it's so handy. You save so much energy, and you can cook food nice and quickly. These are the things that help us. Not just we've written a lot of code or we've brought new technology up. What is the value? 3 parts of this is, first of all, sharing our results open. So across Europe, making it available. So if one thing you take away from this from this conference is around open source is the word open. It's in the word, that word. Open means the more open you are, the more collaborative you'll be, the more stuff you get done. And when I first went to my first open source conference, which was OpenStack in Atlanta about 11 years ago, I was blown away by the collaboration. Now I ended up there because someone fell off the bus. At the last moment I said, right, do you want to go to this conference? Where's it on in Atlanta? How do I book it? Oh my God, I don't even know where Atlanta is. Just go. But to see people across the divide from different companies working together, trying to get things done, it just blew me away. And that's it. We talk about the code, we talk about contributions, but people have mentioned a lot today, it's all the people that collaborate. So making them available through different avenues. And then, as I said a while ago, the results need to be tangible. They need to be able to feed back into the industry. And that's the great thing about manufacturing in the industry is they're not going to just take technology for the sake of it. They'll only take it if it's going to make optimizations or it's going to improve their processes. And the final one there is engaging the stakeholders. And that means bringing everyone across from industry to society to see what he can do and how we can bring it forward. And the last thing that I want to say around Horizon Europe is the adoption of open source. So what does adopting, how impactful is open source? And to me, and I'll go back to the word I said a few minutes ago, it's collaboration. Everyone knows what company I work for, or that I know in the communities. I know what companies they work for. But we're trying to go to a bigger, we're trying to go to achieve something bigger together. Because one thing we learned when we were starting out early in the cloud native space and we were creating products for cloud orchestration. So what you take granted for today, you know, when you have an app running out somewhere in the cloud, and my mum thought it was, you know, it was going to rain in the cloud or something like that, was the ability, when we were putting it together, was everyone was writing their own proprietary clouds. And that was from the lowest level up along. And then OpenStack came in, and OpenStack revolutionized it because it brought this collaboration around the infrastructure layer, the lower level layer of networking, how you deploy virtual machines, that abstraction. And all companies decided that, okay, you know what, we'd start building a product on top of OpenStack. And for us to build on top of OpenStack, we need to contribute out there. And that's where the partnerships came in, and the development, and it went across boundaries, and it went across sectors. And I was at a conference once where I mentioned way back around that the big disruptor today is two people in Starbucks somewhere can come up with a product like that on a cloud that they're running for free and disrupt a major multinational. And I take it one step further. It means if you live in the backside end of Ireland, in a cottage, and you have Wi-Fi, and you have a device, and you can write some code or you can make some contribution, you're making a difference. And that transfers all across the world. So no longer do you need to be in Silicon Valley to drive the world. Don't get me wrong, I'm not giving out about anyone in Silicon Valley, but you can be anywhere in the world to drive it and make a difference. So it's having that partnership across. And then the innovation that we talk about. You innovate so much faster. I don't think there's a company anymore that can do everything top to end like that used to happen, because we're going bigger and further, we're achieving more, we're trying to achieve more. We are just, it's not just simple apps anymore that you install on your devices. It's just become, the world has become bigger. And I think with AI, we're looking at the next aspects of that. Where can AI help us? And from a developer-centric, if I look at myself, it's great now that I can take real open models where you can see the training data, you can see the weights, you can see the architecture, and I can take open source tools like VS Code, continue to use as a code assistant, and Olama to run the model for me. And, you know, I'm not going to remember what the print statements are. I'm not going to remember list comprehensions. I won't remember specific stuff. I normally have to go to my browser to look it up, but now I can select on it, I can click on the code assistant, and then I can tell it, will you give me that? It'll push it back out for me. And it just means it's going to improve the way I do stuff, but I still have to look over that code and see does that code fit into what I'm doing. So that's where the skills are. And I think Katrin talked about it today. She talked about middle-aged men. I think it was men she picked in particular, still writing code that need to change their ways. But as I said to her, old dogs and new tricks too. So we're moving with the times. And then finally, having transparency across it and being open, as I said earlier, because that builds trust in. And from there, we can drive forward and be more collaborative and we can achieve more. Okay. So that gives a little bit of a background to Horizon Europe. So to, I suppose, prove that Horizon Europe isn't just another European department where we send people over to make lots of money in Brussels and have a great time. Cogniman is a consortium that shows that there is action happening behind this. Now I'll leave you read the name up there because it's quite a long name. Cognitive Industry for Smart Manufacturing. And this was a consortium that was started by Horizon Europe in 2023 and is going to run right through to 2026. It's, who has heard of Norse? We're very educated group in here. We wouldn't mind putting his hand up there. Great. So, for people who don't know it, like myself, it's a Norwegian research institute, and it conducts research for both the public and the private industry. And what it wants to do is help society to make more informed and sustained choices for the future. So, I suppose it's looking at how does the economy, how does society, and how does the environment work as one going forward. And there's a number of industrial and engineering partners involved, both from the EU and from the the EEA, the European Economic Area, so that includes Norway and so forth, that's not in the EU part. And their goal really is to revolutionise smart manufacturing. So to make manufacturing that much smarter by using cognitive technologies like AI, robotics, and to use them in an adaptable and reusable way using open source and open source repositories. So it ties in with a lot of the talks that some of the speakers said today around the EU that using it, not just talking about open source, but using open source. And one of the second aims is that it should lead to more efficient and sustainable manufacturing going forward. So there's 4 pilot sites. The first one is 3B Fiberglass, which the name probably gives it away. It's a fiberglass manufacturer from Norway. And they're quite cool because they use a lot of hydropower from their fjords and stuff in Norway. And their goal is to keep optimizing their manufacturing ways. Because, as I said, for these, I suppose, 4 pilot companies or sites is, they are competing with low-cost economies. So how do they cut down the cost each time, while still, having people working in their company and still being effective? The second one is Gomex in Spain, and they're a manufacturer of large large parts like the wind turbine blades, which are huge, and their goal is to go around and what they want to get is to be able to increase productivity and efficiency around their processes. Crew Medical, which is in Ireland, based out of Limerick. So they're a medical device company, and they have tedious processes that they want to be able to automate using robotics. And finally, and it's one of the pilot sites I'm going to talk about, is ABS Steel in Italy. And they're steel manufacturing plants that takes raw steel and manufactures into a form for their customers that will then do finished product on it. And they have problems around the manufacturing process with the amount of steel they have and trying to manage that steel in the yard and how it affects the manufacturing process. So each one of these sites are working towards how to use AI and open source and then driving towards the manufacturing process and see the final output of that. So I'm going to concentrate on one of the scenarios. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to look at one of the scenarios, and it's around the ABS steel manufacturing in Italy. So, as I just said, raw steel comes in from a recycling plant in Croatia, off a train, and then taken by a forklift and brought into the yard. So this is a huge yard, and the steel is put in different bundles in the yard. On top of that, some of the steel is treated in different ways. And what I mean by that is, in some ways, it may be treated by the amount of carbon that's in it, and in other ways then it might be how the treatment process was. Now why is that important? That's important for the particular type of, manufacturing after this. So in this plant it's going to do interim manufacturing and then provide it in the format that it get to its customers to do the finished product. Now these raw steel bars, they're about 4 meters long and they're about 3 to 4 ton. So you're not really going to be lifting them yourself. It requires a forklift, and there's a logistics then of where are the bars and how do you move the bars and so forth. So when this shipment comes in, the order is put in a certain area, and then that's inputted into a SAP system so that the logistics know where the particular bars are. And this works quite well normally because the operators are quite knowledgeable in their area. So when an order comes in from a customer, for example, the wind turbine company, they'll want certain steel bars put into a certain format for them, or it may be steel cabling for cars like Ferrari or whatever. They'll need then a different type of steel bar treated in a certain way, and then it'll be put into cabling and so forth for them to finish the product. And when that order comes in, logistics will look at the system and say, right, the bars are there, and the operator will go with our forklift, they'll unload particular bars and find the bars they need and bring them in. Has anyone ever gone to a forge or gone to a steel manufacturing place where, you have it? Yeah. So if you've ever gone into one of these areas, and especially if it's a small unit, they're always very well organized. So if you come in and you say, I need something made, you give the specification. That person then will go and find the particular steel they need or iron they need, and then go off and make the thing they want. Now I had a neighbour down the road, there's a fitter like that, and he was great, lots of people came to him. And he was a very relaxed guy, 90% of the time. But there was 10% of the time when steel came in the door, too much stuff came in the door, and it became a mess. And his wife always said, I'm going to wait for a week until he sorts himself out, because he used to get very grumpy trying to sort it out. Well, the same thing happens with this yard, but in a massive scale. So what happens after a while is, the whole yard and the stacks get fragmented. And the operators then need to figure out where are these bars. And every now and again then, the whole thing becomes so fragmented that the manufacturing process shuts down for a number of days. So you can imagine if you're in a manufacturing process, if it shuts down for a few days, you're losing money straight away. So it's not what you want. So one of its goals here is to be able to automate this process of where the bars are, so that if it gets fragmented, they're still able to keep the manufacturing process going. So this is the solution they've come up with. And it's, first of all, using a drone. Now, there's hazards in this yard, as in there's bars sticking out, there might be different obstructions. So initially they looked at, to figure out where the different stacks were, that a person would operate the drone around the yard and take videos and pictures of the yard and figure out where the stacks were and where the bundles were in it. But they figured out straight away that it was a health and safety reason, or health and safety risk, or else the EU came in and told them it was a health and safety risk. Someone said it was a health and safety risk, so they had to back from that and then start looking at using an automated drone. So it's referred to as a UAV, or an unmanned aerial vehicle. Now what's interesting with that is, this vehicle, or this drone, is going to go out and navigate the yard. So first of all, it's going to take high-level video of or images of the yard to figure out where the stacks in the yard are. Then its next point of call is going to be looking at the different stacks and where the bars are the different stacks. Now it needs to look at how close does it need to go to those images. So for the UAV part and figuring out the route so it can work this route, it's going to use reinforced learning. And this is AI algorithms where it will look at the different routes and then feedback each time. And those routes will be analysed either by humans or by another model that looks at it and say, right, no, you need to change your route here, you need to go to the routes there. So it's going to work out itself over time which is the routes it should go. Now its key goal of the drone is to take pictures of the stacks. So the QR code, so that in each QR code it'll know where the bars are. And that's what it does next. So it needs to go in and take those pictures. But all the time it's using real-time AI, which is taking pictures on the fly and analysing them and feeding them back using computer vision. So here you're bringing more aspects of AI into it. Those images then have to be analysed on the fly to see if they're of a good quality. If they're not of a good quality, the drone needs to get closer to take the picture. So not like the bad old days when your mum took a picture, your dad took a picture, and your heads were cut off, but you couldn't go back because it was before digital cameras. These jokes are really good on that, aren't they? Tough audience today, folks. I know how Jerry Seinfeld or someone feels. Anyway, we will continue that. So that information then is gathered, it's going to be loaded up and analysed. So it's going to analyse the different stacks, where the stacks are, what bars are in those stacks, and then it's going to update the SAP system. So at all times, the SAP system is kept up to date by the drone. So it's one thing to say that the research done on this and they've looked at the architecture they're going to do, but it's another thing then to see where the impact is. So where is the status at this moment? So this is turning the research and collaboration I said into an impact. So we have it broken down into a series of AI-related components. An interesting one at the top is project management, where they didn't have the skill set for breaking down the user stories and the work to be done. So they've started to use agentic AI in that. So someone that has expertise around that area, using models and so forth to spin out the stories into different processes, so the breakdown of the work. The other ones around the flight path and the QRM engine. They're using computer vision, real-time AI, you have the unmanned vehicle, which I talked about, and reinforced learning for the flight path. Also, one thing to note as well, when you're taking these images, you may take images you shouldn't have taken. For example, some person is sunbathing out in the field beside the yard, or walking around, or their car is taken. Then those pictures need to be taken out because they're private pictures. And then the data cataloging of it. So taking the images, putting metadata towards timestamp and so forth, and putting them in particular folders. And then finally around the last aspect of it is using improved logistics. So if you've heard of operational research, where you break down a problem into the different parts, this is where this is used in relation to AI as well, where it puts in and says, right, what order should we take next? Where is it easier to get the bars and so forth? And finally, here is some of the open source software that's done around it, that you've learned chain alarm, etc. So to just finish up. So when I started out, I said, what were the goals for Horizon Europe and EU? First of all, I said the boosting of EU competitiveness. Then I talked about strengthening global impact in EU industries and unlocking knowledge and technology. AI and open source is going to be the key to all this. And not just AI for the sake of it. I've talked about the way they're using AI here, and we're all pretty going, oh yeah, we have some of that before. So it's not about all generative AI, it's about using AI that's there before and how we can use it, and the way we can use open source to help drive it forward. And finally then, it's the EU driving this to help our industries across the board to improve their competitiveness and their optimization of their processes. So, thank you.